Raider Nation, thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble, sponsored by Chucky's Thugs and MyBookie. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3RaiderFax, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Hello, Heidi, and greetings to the Raider Nation. We are in the middle of the bye week, and at least for now, we are in sole possession of first place in the AFC West. So let's talk about where we are and where we're going. Let's go.
Today on the show, we'll share a few notes that we've gathered during the off week. We'll each share our biggest surprise and our biggest disappointment so far this season, and then we'll turn our attention to the next opponent, the New York Giants.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you. So here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also visit us on the web at onlynationpod.com, find all our episodes, and be sure to hit like and subscribe.
Here's the latest Raider news.
The Raiders have moved safety Clinton Dix back onto the practice squad from the COVID-19 list, and both tight end Matt Bushman and linebacker Markel Lee have reverted back to the practice squad.
We're just adding and subtracting small pieces here and there for depth, but I would like to comment that it is nice to see Markel Lee back with the team, even if he doesn't get very much of a burn right away.
Yeah, I like Markel Lee. I'm glad to see him back with the team. I really like Nicholas Morrow. They both came in the same year. But it's good to see Markel Lee. You know, he was actually one of our draft picks, and it's good to see him back, especially for a position that needs a little bit of depth. The Raiders also released wide receiver Willie Snead last week, and he was signed to the Carolina Panthers practice squad.
We knew it was a really crowded receiving room to begin with. Now, maybe I'm the only one who picked up on this, but I did find it a little bit odd that the Raiders picked up a player from the Carolina Panthers practice squad during the offseason just to have them turn around and do the exact same thing to the Raiders last week. Although we're talking about different players, we are talking about receivers.
How many months apart was that?
It's been more than a couple.
It could just be that they happened to... I'm not saying it's not a conspiracy.
It's coincidental.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
Okay. Aliens disguised as a panther helmet.
Yannick Ngakoue was named Week 7 AFC Defensive Player of the Week after a standout performance against the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the only player in the league with at least 2 sacks and 2 passes defensed for the week.
And I would simply like to comment that so far this season, after 7 games, the Raiders have already received 4 awards for AFC Player of the Week. Quarterback Derek Carr, kicker Daniel Carlson, and defensive ends Max Crosby, and now Yannick Ngakoue. This means that the team is not only playing well, but that the individual performances are there too.
And it's nice and balanced. It's not just offense or defense. It's special teams, it's offense and defense, so that's really nice to see.
All 3 phases of the game.
And that's what's important. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is share who we each think is the biggest pleasant surprise for the Raiders so far this season. And we're each going to take one, share it, and discuss it. T3, who has been your biggest surprise so far this year?
Well, Heidi, I have to tell you, I had a lot of questions about Jonathan Abram during the offseason. There was a point where I thought he might not even win the starting job. I remember when he first came into the league in 2019, he was full of swagger and hype and a lot of talk. I think he figured he could just step right in and blow things up all over the field defensively. But he didn't have strong coaching and not a lot of good, solid depth around him. But he came into camp, kept his head down this year and his mouth mostly shut, and I think his play has improved dramatically over the course of the season. I will also comment that he has had the backing of Coach Ron Miles. Now, I still don't know if he's done quite enough to warrant getting the pickup of that fifth-year option, but I think of the 3 first-round rookies from that draft, he might be the best bet as far as that goes. Jonathan Abram may not be having an all-pro season, but the potential is there. If he just keeps doing his job and focuses on sound fundamental play and not trying to do too much, he'll be fine. The Raiders will be fine, and he might just get that fifth year picked up.
I actually could see that happening after watching him play the first half of this year. I was really disappointed in seeing him try to walk with the swagger without having earned it. It played very badly for him. He went out there with the attitude, but he hadn't earned anything yet. And it showed because he didn't earn anything. And now this year, like you said, he's kept his head down. He's been quiet. He's just been working on being a better player. And it's really showed on the field. I'm glad to see where he's at now. And as far as the fifth year option, I think you might be right on him being the most likely to have that picked up. I obviously don't think Cleve Farrell is going to be picked up. I know, in fact, that he is a trade candidate. Unfortunately, I don't think that the Raiders are going to find a trade partner. We'll find out by the time this episode is releasing that the trade deadline is tomorrow. But Josh Jacobs, I don't think the Raiders are very happy with his injury history. And I could really see them letting him go after the fourth season.
His production has gone down, and that's a big hit they're looking at. If they pick up that fifth-year option, I think it could go up to $10 million. Yeah. And that's a lot for a fourth-year running back who has an injury history.
Yeah, exactly. But even last week, he did good against the Eagles, but he got knocked out halfway through the game. And even then, there was some argument between him and the Raiders if he was even injured or not. So Raiders probably saw him kind of struggling a little bit, didn't want to risk it with his history, and pulled him. I really could see Abram being the best candidate for the fifth-year option, although I don't think he's a very strong candidate for that yet.
He's got some proving to do.
Yes.
Heidi, who do you have as far as surprises go? Pleasant surprises.
My pleasant surprise is Denzel Perryman. He is a player that I wasn't even sure was going to make the team. He was kind of just a little toss-in towards later on in the preseason, and I didn't really give him much thought. But he's been among the league leaders in tackles, and I'm not sure where he is this week after the bye, but he's been right up there, and he has been all over the field, everywhere. The only thing I have to say is sometimes he still needs to wrap up on the tackles, but overall, he's been very impressive. He's been a pleasant surprise, and I've been very happy to see what he's been able to do over the field.
I totally agree. When Perryman was picked up, I looked at his injury history, and I wasn't really counting on him much at all. I thought maybe he might come in and be some additional depth and play a couple of downs, but he has really surprised me. And if you had not picked him up as your pleasant surprise, I probably would have. So kudos to Denzel Perryman for not only stepping in as late as he did, but coming in and making an impact. And he is truly an alpha dog on that defense now.
He really is, and we really needed him to step up with Nicholas Morrow out. And, well, we'll talk about the need for him to step up in just a minute. Now that we've wrapped up our pleasant surprises, it's time to look at our biggest disappointments so far this season. And I'll start this one. Now, there are a few players that I could choose from this, and one of the ones that I've said often is Damon Arnett, but I didn't expect him to be much of a surprise. I sadly expected him to be a disappointment. I hoped that he wasn't, but it's not a surprise disappointment for me. But the one that I'm disappointed in the most is Corey Littleton. Now, he's a player that he did well for the Rams, and when he came over to the Raiders, I was really excited. I thought that he could really make an impact. Now, Paul Gunther messed up as far as the coaching went, and Corey Littleton came out and said that, and I actually really supported him saying that, and I thought that he was a team leader by stepping up and speaking out, and thought, okay, so now with Paul Gunther gone, we're really going to see what Corey Littleton has to show, and he's going to be a great player. Well, how many times have we called his name? He's been a pretty big disappointment, especially with his contract. Now, I'm not saying that he has done terribly, but he's definitely been out of position a lot. He's taken bad angles, and he's just not providing the leadership that we're paying him to provide. It really has fallen on Denzel Perryman, and part of the reason it's fallen on him was because of the big disappointment in Corey Littleton.
And I might have chosen Corey Littleton as my biggest disappointment, but this one might actually surprise you. There have been several Raiders who have disappointed me this year. The obvious names would be Alex Leatherwood, Cleve Ferrell, and Damon Arnett, but I'm going in a different direction. I'm looking directly at the guy who wore the green dot on defense for most of the season last year, and that's linebacker Nick Kwiatkowski. Nick K's only played 67 snaps this season, and he's behind Denzel Perryman, Corey Littleton, and KJ Wright in total number of snaps. Now, I'm hoping that sometime soon the team may be getting back Nicholas Morrow, which would just sink Kwiatkowski further down the depth chart, and Javen White may be coming back also. Now, Nick has been injured, but he just hasn't been that thumper that I hoped he would be. And I would have made the prediction that he might have been moved prior to the trade deadline, but the problem is with his contract. He did restructure it, so he's currently on the books to make $2.4 million this year. But next year, the number jumps to $8.2 million, so that makes it difficult to trade. So they haven't gotten nearly the production out of him that I'd hoped they would, and they've got to try and do something with him so they don't get dinged for a lot more. This looked to be a terrific signing out of the gate during the 2020 offseason, but it just hasn't worked out. Big disappointment in my eyes.
Yeah, it really has, and I know that he's been injured, but the thing is, he was injured last year too. He's been injured both years. While last year he was able to play through it and provide some real leadership and some good play, this year he's just been a non-factor. I mean, he's been a ghost.
He's been less and less of a factor. In fact, I hardly hear his name called at all during the defensive sequences.
It's actually to the point where I was rewatching the game on Friday night, I think it was, and I saw him on the field, and I was like, who is that? Oh, that's right. That's Kwiatkowski.
We had to even remember whether he was on the injured list or not.
Yeah, it must have been like one of his only plays that game against the Eagles. It might have been special teams. I'm not sure.
You didn't recognize him because he didn't have the green dot on.
That must have been exactly it. Okay, let's take a look at this week's game against the Giants. T3, how do you see this week shaping up, and what is your score prediction?
Okay, now when the Raiders played the Eagles, I was a little concerned about the Raiders coming out flat, and they did initially. Now, after a week of rest, they're making their second East Coast trip, and there are a lot of Raiders fans in the New York, New Jersey area, and I want to give them all a shout out, by the way. Now, the early betting line has the Raiders as a 3-point favorite on the road, which seems a bit low for the current second seed in the AFC coming off a bye week. Going east has traditionally been a struggle, and remember, they almost lost to a bad New York Jets team a year ago. But the Giants are banged up, and they are in rebuild mode. And Derek Carr and the Raiders' offense is really starting to hum now to go along with that solid defensive play. The Raiders, I believe, will be up for this game because they know they face a tough stretch after this week. I see the offense coming out of its shell and putting up 38 points against just 13 for the G-men. So, final score, Raiders 38, Giants 13. Heidi, what do you have for us?
Ooh, I hope that's the final score. That would be great.
That would be nice.
Now, the key to winning the game, I think, is going to be the offensive line. I know that I've been harping on the lines the entire season, and I'm going to continue harping on the lines. The defensive line, they've been great. They've been simply spectacular. So as long as they continue playing that way, we're going to be okay there. As long as the defense is putting pressure on the quarterback, it really helps the backfield out. And I don't believe that Trayvon Mullen is coming back for the Giants game. I know that everyone that's on IR was kind of given different timetables for return, and he was a maybe, but it sounded like they wanted to rest him up and be ready for KC. So we'll still see later on in the week what happens with him. But my key to victory is going to be the offensive line. I don't think Richie Incognito is going to be back this week. And I know they said he would give it a go after the bye. But I believe I saw on Twitter that Bisaccia said that he was not coming back this week. So that's a toss-up. I don't even know why we still talk about him. I don't know why I brought up his name again.
Yeah, it's always nice to dream and to hope.
It really is. But going back east for a cold game early in the day is a tough job for the Raiders. I know there was a stretch from, I think, 2009 to 2015 where they went back like 20 some times, and they won 2 of those games. Now, that's a long time ago, and we have improved on the road, especially back to the east now. But it's still iffy. It's still tough to do. And I know that the coaching staff and Mark Davis is really going to be looking to Derek Carr to see how he plays an early game and the cold game. And the Raiders should defeat the Giants handily. I think 38-13 might be a little unrealistic. Daniel Jones, he can be pretty slippery and sneaky. He can get some points on the board just by being himself. So I'm going to go a little bit closer together, but I am going to go with the Raiders winning the game 31-17. So that's my key to victory. The offensive line opening up the offense for us, and the defense just playing the way they have.
A 2-touchdown win, I'll take it. I would be happy with that.
Okay, T3, why don't you share with us a bit about our new sponsor?
All right, Heidi, thanks. Folks, when I gamble, I'm always looking for a way to get an edge. But at MyBookie, they double your first deposit, so you start with a leg up. Using our promo code OnlyNation, sign up now, claim your first deposit bonus with MyBookie, and use the extra funds to kickstart your winning season. This weekend, lay the points with Arizona as they continue streaking in San Francisco. And with 2 top 10 offenses in the Titans and Rams going toe-to-toe on Sunday night, you can safely smash the over at MyBookie. Don't just take my word for it. Head to MyBookie and sign up now using promo code OnlyNation to get your money doubled and start winning today. Remember, good friends don't let friends win alone. So have your buddies use your referral link so you're eligible to receive an additional 250% bonus on their first deposit. Plus, it's unlimited to redeem, so all of your friends can join in on the party with MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And thanks for your sponsorship, MyBookie, for our podcast.
Yes, thank you, MyBookie. I think it's going to be time for me to head on over there and make a deposit this week.
And make sure you bet on the Raiders.
Oh, I am. I think I might have to take the over. I'll have to check to see what it is then. Okay, we're going to try something new here. Instead of T3's top 3, we're going to let him rant. We used to have a segment called Homer's Hammer, which you might remember. So we're going to borrow from that and introduce something new that we may be going to from time to time. We're going to let T3 tee off on something, or someone. And so we're going to call this segment T3 Tees Off. So what are you ranting about this week, T3?
All right, Heidi, thank you. Now, Mark Davis came out this past week and spoke about the Washington football team investigation, and he expressed that he would like the findings to all be released. Now, I'm still scratching my head that the only collateral damage so far has been Raiders head coach John Gruden resigning from his post. Now, I'm not attacking that sole result, but I think everyone deserves to know the details of that investigation. Davis commented that he believes that there should be a written report on the investigation, and I totally agree with that. Last week, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones came out and said that he was very satisfied with the punishment and that he approves the way that the league has handled the punishment of the Washington football team. Punishment, come on now. Now, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I know about a lot of the allegations against owner Daniel Snyder and the WFT. And I call total BS on this. Jerry Jones loves to talk, and I know he was friends with Al Davis, but he needs to just shut up. Roger Goodell's already said that the league doesn't plan to release the findings of the investigation, and you already know how I feel about Goodell. But he's just desperately trying to protect his brand right now, and it looks to me like he's hiding info, that there are a lot of things he doesn't want the public to know about. And in this new age of renewed vigor toward causes of social justice, Goodell and the league come off as the biggest frauds on the planet. Now, as far as the Gruden emails go, the league knew about this back in the summer, and they waited to inform Mark Davis in October. Consequently, when the Raiders had jumped off to a great start, Davis didn't even find out from the league directly. He found out from the Wall Street Journal report released just 3 days before the Bears game. But the NFL knew this information, and they withheld this information, and I, for one, want to know why. It appears that Congress is now going to press the matter further, and I think they should, because the people have a right to know what's been going on. And if John Gruden should have to resign as the Raiders coach, I think there should be more than enough ammunition to be able to take control of the Washington football team from one Daniel Snyder. Okay, Heidi, I've teed off.
You certainly have. And I have to say that I definitely agree with you. You know, there were a lot of victims in this Washington football team investigation, and they deserve justice. There were a lot of people that came forward and spoke bravely, and they also deserve that justice. For the only collateral damage to be John Gruden, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not like he was writing those emails into a vacuum. They were part of conversations that my personal belief is that they would be very damaging to the league. They might not be just damaging to the Washington football team. They might really hurt the league, and that there might be a reason why they are not releasing them. I agree with Congress pushing the matter. I think that there should be a written report, and I think that there should be a little bit more transparency about what went on. I think Daniel Snyder is a little slimeball. That's just my personal opinion. Am I teeing off too?
No, absolutely. But it's very warranted. I mean, the NFL, in this age of social justice, as we mentioned, they can't continue to carry that flag unless they're willing to go ahead and expose the dark underbelly with all this scandal going on. I mean, if there's nothing there, let the American people see it. Let's see the report. Let's see what's in there, and let's everybody decide. But by hiding it, it lets you know that there's something there that they don't want, the league doesn't want the people to see, which is even more reason to publish it.
I personally just think that it could be so damaging that the league can't let it get out, that it would greatly damage the league and a lot more people than just John Gruden. Just my personal opinion.
True. They've got to protect that cash cow.
Yeah. Okay, give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. And this week on Raider Roots, we're going to revisit the 1972 AFC Divisional Playoff game between the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It ended on a play known as the Immaculate Reception by some. And T3 is going to take us on a deep dive, actually mostly of that play. Not even so much on the game, right?
Right. Most of it's going to be the events that led up to it, the play itself, and kind of the fallout and aftermath.
Yeah, I was listening to it this weekend, and it was pretty darn interesting. There was a lot in there that I didn't know yet in history. I've always just known it was the Immaculate Deception, but I never knew the intricacies of why.
I will say that I probably did as much, if not more, research on this particular episode than all the others I've done so far. And it's kind of odd that it falls all around just one play.
It really is, but it's a good lesson, so check it out, guys. All right, T3, let's find out what we do and do not know.
Okay, it's time for this week's Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and our entire listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 possible answers to choose from. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. So here goes. Here's this week's question. This coming week will mark the first time in almost 20 years that the Raiders will have faced a Giants team without Eli Manning as the starting quarterback. Now, when Eli made his first appearance against the Raiders in the last week of the 2005 season, who was the Raiders' starting quarterback? Was it A, Kerry Collins, B, Marcus Tuiasosopo, or C, Ronald Curry? Heidi, what do you think?
Are we talking just on the depth chart, or are we talking the actual starter?
Actual starter.
Oh, because on the depth chart, I could just tell you. This is a little bit trickier. I do recall that Ronald Curry was our emergency quarterback. I don't recall him actually starting any games. Of course, that probably means he's the answer. But I would say it's a toss-up between Collins and Tuiasosopo. So A, Kerry Collins, B, Marquez Tuiasosopo, C, Ronald Curry. I'm just going to go with a middle-of-the-road answer and say B, Marquez Tuiasosopo.
He actually started one game during the 2005 season. 2005 really was the season of Kerry Collins. He started every game except for one, including the Giants game. And this is kind of odd because 5 years before, he actually led the Giants to the Super Bowl, where they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. So the answer for this week's question is A, Kerry Collins. And that is this week's version of Did You Know?
I had to overthink it, didn't I?
You overthought it.
I did. But yes, I actually remember Kerry Collins, and I liked him as our quarterback.
He did pretty well.
I liked Tuiasosopo as well. I actually have Tuiasosopo up on an autographed shield, along with another group of other players. I think I figured out it was around maybe 2007, 2008. And it's a velvet Raiders shield that's autographed by a lot of players, and it's framed and it's hanging in my room. So Chewy is one of my autographs, and he's sitting up there and he's saying, "Thank you for going with me, Heidi, but you overthought it."
And I think of two things. 2005, of course, that was the season of Kerry Collins as far as starters go, but I always remember that the 2005 draft was the one that we bypassed on a certain draft in the first round by the name of Aaron Rodgers.
Who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Doesn't sound like anybody special.
He might have been.
Yeah, he did turn out to be a pretty decent quarterback. Hall of Famer, all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, what could have been.
Yes. Well, there were a lot of teams that passed on Aaron Rodgers. He sat there in the draft room for a long time waiting for somebody to pick him.
He did. And the team that picked him, he took him to a Super Bowl.
Yes, he did.
All right. Raider Nation, it is time now for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
This week's hero, I'm going to pick it out of the Eagles game because, well, We actually already talked about him. We talked about him last episode, and we talked about him this week already. But there's just no way I can overlook Yannick Ngakoue being named the Week 7 AFC Defensive Player of the Week. He finished the Eagles contest with 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 passes defensed. It really was the day of twos. He was spectacular. Max Crosby was right along his side. They really were like bookends. It was scary watching them play. They were treating Jalen Hurts like a little rag doll. Poor little guy. It's a good thing he can move fast. But Yannick Ngakoue, it was his 12th career multi-sack game and his second multi-sack game this season. So that puts him up to 4 sacks on the year. He's on fire and he is catching on. His 2 quarterback hits and 2 sacks contributed to the total of 10 hits and 4 sacks that he does have on the season. And he has the second most on the team behind Max Crosby. I believe Max has 5.
He has really stepped up and been that hero that we all hoped that he would be at the beginning of the season. A lot of us were pounding the table for him to be picked up during free agency, and he was, and we all had these visions of what he might do. He started off kind of slow, and of course Max Crosby took off, but he's catching up now, and he's doing a stellar job on that line.
Oh yeah, they both are, and I'm really glad to see him catching on fire, and I think it's coming at the right time when we need it. We're coming into a grueling part of the schedule. Obviously not the Giants, but we are going to have to travel back east, and that's always a big thing for the Raiders. So that's always difficult. And then, of course, we have a game against the Chiefs, which it's very winnable, but it's still a tough one because it is a division game.
I want to see him really catch fire against the Chiefs, him and Max Crosby both.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes getting flopped around. That would be excellent.
Yes, it would.
And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. Next week, we'll be back with a longer episode because we will actually have a game to talk about. We will. Yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsors Chucky's Thugs and MyBookie for sponsoring this week's show. Remember to use the promo code OnlyNation at MyBookie.com and double your first deposit. Join the fun at MyBookie. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/OnlyNationPod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KevlarPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. Join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
All right, Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the regular season. Now that we're off the bye week, we got 10 games left, possibly more. So here's what we'd like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and some podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we can use on one of our upcoming episodes and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are 2 easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, as several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I'll do my best to respond back, and I would love to include your comments on an upcoming show. And thank you for tuning in and also getting involved. And thank you once again for your support of the Raider Roots podcast.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation. We are the only nation. Raider